Hello everyone, welcome to Options Talk 21 for this weekend. And this week we have a guest again, like the last few weeks, and of course I'll come to that later. Before that, like usual, I'll run through the charts for the week and what the week ahead looks like based on these charts. So, like I said, VIX was looking quite positive from 17 onward, but now if you see the chart of VIX, it is taking resistance near 23.5, 24. So, if this continues lower, then maybe it means that the market doesn't fear the US elections. Let's see. The 24 remains the line of control, and on the lower side, it is this low which is near 18.5 and then 17. So this is how VIX has to be tracked: 18.5, 24, and then 17. But the election is so near now that I don't think VIX will remain like this. I expect that to cross 24, but let's see. You can't speculate. You have to follow the chart. So that is for VIX right now. And because of VIX going down, you might have seen a lot of strategists give a good short trigger for the last 2 days, Wednesday onwards. So that is how VIX helps. If you see the VIX Nifty ratio, that also has given a double bottom sell, but now it is still above the moving average. So it is still not out of the woods. If you come to Nifty chart on a EOD basis, it is well above the moving average. Like I said last week, that it looks sideways. It was sideways, slightly on the higher side, but it has not yet gone and crossed above that 12,025, which I had talked about 3 weeks back. That is a gap area between 12,012 and 12,042, gap all the way from February. So that has still not been crossed, and now it is at a stage where it can go anywhere. Either if it crosses 12,025, then there will be a good rise, and below that 11,650 is the support, and before that 11,800. So these are the levels to watch out for. Bank Nifty had been outperforming over the last almost 3 weeks since the time I mentioned that, and now even Bank Nifty is taking a pause. You see, there's a big anchor column here from 16th October to 21st. Now it is taking a pause, but whether that is a pause or a reversal, of course, it's too early. There is a trend line support near 24,200. But if this gives a double top by above 24,650, which is not very far off, that will be a very big breakout, because it will be almost like a T20 breakout, because this is just a 64. This is a column with 64 boxes, and this column, if it breaks out now, that is a very small column. So just a very small retracement and a big breakout will be very bullish for Bank Nifty. But of course, that is about 24,650 closing on spot. Now I won't take much time today, but I have one interesting stock which has shown promise. In fact, I find a lot of similarity between this and TCS. This is Bajaj Auto. If you see the long-term chart of Bajaj Auto, this is a 1% chart. This is a very bullish chart. And it, of course, like all stocks, it gave a big dip in February, March because of the COVID. But even if you look at the 3% chart, this is an extremely bullish chart. And now it is on the verge of giving a double top buy on a 3% chart. So that double top buy will come only above 32.95. It's quite far away yet, because that's still 200 points away. But even on a normal short-term 0.25% chart, it has given a turtle breakout and a double top buy breakout. So what do the options say? Let us see what the options say. If you see the 3100 put, which is still in the money, Bajaj Auto is still below 3100. There was a huge bearish anchor column on Friday, right from 124 to 49, and even that has given a follow through and it closed near the day's low. That is a very bullish sign for Bajaj Auto, because there's a lot of selling in the puts. 3100, which is still in the money. Bajaj Auto is still below 3100. And if you see the call, why I selected Bajaj Auto was, if you remember, last month we had a guest, Vishal Kshatriya, who was talking about stocks closing near the highest OI of calls or puts. So this is what Bajaj Auto is. Bajaj Auto highest call open interest is near 3100, and Bajaj Auto is 3082 closing. So if it crosses 3100 and starts trading above that, this call will come into picture, 3100. This has already given a bullish structure. In fact, it is above the 45-degree trend line, and right now it is near 41, 42. This has the potential to go all the way up to 100, 110. In which case, Bajaj Auto might go to 31, 3200. So this has to be seen. Of course, Bajaj Auto has a resistance near 3160, which was a last 2 months it could not cross 3155, 3160. So that needs to be seen. If we go and look at the open interest, of 30, 50, and 3100. So if you see 3100, it is definitely still not bullish, because naturally Bajaj Auto is still below 3100. But there is small amount of put writing which has happened in the last few hours. So this put writing, if it continues and if the call gets covered, that will be very bullish. If you look at the 30-50 open interest, which is in the money, you can see a lot of open interest was covered in the call. It dropped suddenly on Friday second half, but still the put writing is not picking up. For a stock to continue rising, you need contribution from both. Put writing should happen and call covering should happen. In fact, typically put writing happens first and then call covering happens. Here it is the opposite. Call covering has already happened. Put writing is not yet so strong. So when these two cross each other, that time it will be a very bullish sign. So going forward, if Bajaj Auto crosses 3100, that will be a very bullish sign. Then definitely this crossover will happen, and then all eyes will be on the 3100 call from Monday. Of course, it is an expiry week. Again on Thursday there will be Maruti results, so it's not going to be very easy going forward. But let's see. These are the levels one should watch out for going forward. This is all I had to say this week. Now coming to the guest, he is Abhijit Bhate, who has an experience of almost 18 to 20 years in the Indian market as well as the international market. He has worked in the US and UK. In fact, if you remember, he was a speaker in our DECNOC. So he has been trading successfully iron condors on a weekly Nifty options for the last almost I think 1 year, if I'm not wrong. And he will tell us his way of how he looks at the market and how he trades condors, and what are the weeks when he doesn't trade condors. That is also important. So over to you, Abhijit. I'm making you the presenter now.
Okay, thanks a lot, AP. Okay, are you able to
Yeah.
see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thanks a lot, AP. Hi, Raghunath. How are you? How are you, AP?
Yeah, good, good.
Yeah,
Welcome,
okay.
Abhijit.
Yeah, thanks. So, just to give you a brief idea about what I do on a weekly basis. Now, a lot of people might be conversant with what an iron condor is and how it is traded, but just for the benefit of people who do not know what this strategy is, let me just spend a minute or two in terms of explaining what that condor means and what this strategy means. So, iron condor essentially consists of four legs. What you're trying to do in the iron condor, it's a neutral strategy. You're trying to get the premium by selling a put and selling a call, and then buying a further OTM call and put of the same expiration but different strikes. Uh, what this particular strategy does is that you're hoping that the Nifty stays in the range of the condor and you are able to get all the premium that you collect at the start of the trade. So this weekly condor, the way I do this trade, essentially I get into a trade on a Friday after the Thursday expiry, and when I say Friday, I typically get into the trade at 12:30 or 1 o'clock after the European markets open, so that you already know what the European markets look like and you have a decent idea of what the Nifty level is. Now, what has happened with the weekly condors lately is that after the new margin framework came into the picture, these particular trades have become very margin friendly, so to speak. For this particular trade, you're looking at about 35 to 45K per lot as a margin, depending on the IV for that week as well as the VIX and the other parameters that are there. So what I will try to do is I'll just try to show you how a iron condor looks like for this week and how it may pan out in terms of the payoffs. Before I do that, there's a slight disclaimer. And I typically do this every week, except where there are big events or there is a rise in VIX. These two parameters are my filters. So even though I am showing you this particular strategy for this week, let me be clear that I have not entered this particular strategy because of the US elections pending as well as the rise in VIX. So, AP, just stop me whenever you think that you have a question or something, but I'll just
Yeah,
move
yeah,
ahead with the slide now.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, this is a very familiar UI for most of you. This is Opstra developed by Define Edge and Raghunath. So, for this particular trade, you're looking at selling a 12,200 call and selling 1100 11,700 put, and then buying 12,300 call and 11,600 put. So if you see the payoff chart, it should be pretty clear to you what we are trying to achieve from this particular trade. That we expect for this particular trade that the Nifty should stay between 12,200 and 11,700, so that you will be able to get all the premium that you have received at the start of the trade. As you can see that the probability of the trade, the max profit and everything would be calculated by Opstra for you. But just to give you a brief idea about what the kind of returns that you can expect from this particular strategy, I've been able to generate about 3 to 4% returns on this particular strategy for a duration of 3 to 4 days. So I typically get into this particular strategy on Friday afternoon, as I said previously, and I hold this particular strategy till Wednesday afternoon, which is one day before the expiry. So your holding period typically is a trading day of Monday, Tuesday, and half of Wednesday and half of Friday. That's about it. And essentially, it's a decay in premium that you are expecting these options to do. Now, the after the payoff, what matters more is how I am selecting the strikes. So, one of the main things I look at, which is the next slide, if you can see the Greeks of these particular slides, just concentrate on delta for right now. And as you can see, it's a delta neutral strategy. And the main strikes that I have chosen, which are 12,200 is call option and 11,700 put option. They are typically between the range of 12 to 20 in terms of delta. As you can see, the 12,200 CE is of 13.8 delta and 11,700 PE of 19 delta. Essentially, this delta values I have arrived based on my experience and my back testing. Typically, if you have these particular delta range, there is a good chance for you to profit in terms of probability as well as getting the premium in board. So before I move into that, let me just give you how traditionally iron condors were traded and how what is the difference that I have made going forward, especially with the new feature in the Define Edge software called multi-leg charts. So if you see the iron condor, what it typically is a two different spread option spread legs. Essentially, the call spread and the put spread. Now, once you enter into this particular strategy on a Friday, and let's say the market does not remain in the range and it goes into either a huge upside or a huge downside, what it will happen is one of your spreads will go into negative M2M and one of your legs would go into positive M2M. So that's where what I do is I plot charts of these two different spreads individually on the multi-leg chart. So for this particular strategy you're seeing on the screen, let me just go to the next slide. So this is the multi-leg chart for the call spread, and this is the multi-leg chart for the put spread. What I
So
typically do is
basically, yeah, 1 minute. Basically, you want these
yeah,
multi-leg charts to keep going up.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. So
yeah.
you treat these charts just like you treat a typical trade that you have taken, and you want to carry that trade until the stop loss hits, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah. So the first call, spread that you are seeing on your screen is the 12,200 and 12,300 strikes, and this one is the put. So what I typically do is on Monday or Tuesday, if the market doesn't stay in range, I one of my trades, either the call side or the put side, would hit an SL, and I will exit from that trade, and I will keep on carrying the next the other leg till the expiry, so that I will get maximum premium from it. Now, this is a situation which arises only if your initial hypothesis of selecting the strike prices and the range goes for a toss for some or the other event or the volatility of the market or something like that. If the market stays in range, so in this particular case, if the market stays between 12,200 and 11,700, which is about 500 points, during those 3 days, you are perfectly fine. You don't need to do anything to your trade. Just keep on monitoring the position and enjoy the decay in the premiums of that particular trade. But if at all the market goes volatile in any direction, then that is what you typically end up doing. You get rid of the loss making spread, which, so for example, if the market goes up, the C spread would go into negative M2M. So you get out of that and you keep on carrying the put. That is one thing I do, especially in the Monday or Tuesday, depending on how the market performs. The
One
second
question
thing,
here, Abhijit.
sure, yeah,
Once it goes to one extreme, and let's say you exit the call spread, do you still
yes.
keep looking for initiating another call spread which is a higher strike price, maybe on Tuesday or something like that?
I don't.
Okay.
What I
No, why
typically
I
do
said this
is,
is why I
huh,
said this is, let's say it goes to 12,300, your call spread goes into loss, you exit it, and for some
yes,
reason, because of the volatility, market again comes down, and then it threatens your put spread.
yes,
Has
that
that
has
ever happened?
happened to me. That has happened to me, but the probability of that is, so I've been doing this for almost more than a year now. And
Okay.
out of that, there have been probably 5 or 6 instances where it has happened that, so one day it hit my call spread, and the second day it hit my put spread. But out
Okay.
of the about 50 trades, I've been unfortunate in about 5 trades, which is not a bad trade-off at all.
And still, that put spread would not be in loss. I mean, it has already become M2M plus, and then
Absolutely,
it hit
absolutely,
12,000.
absolutely, absolutely. So
Yeah.
that is what I was just going to say next. So what I do is, the moment you hit a SL on one leg, what you can do, which they tend to do depending on that particular week, is that you can actually increase your position on the put spread, which is already working in your favor, because you have
So
the margin
pyramiding.
left on. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially the idea behind that is you are not doing anything to the side which is not working. So, your question was why I don't get into another call spread. That just
Huh.
means that I am trying to predict that the trend will end here, and then I will get the money from the call. I
No, no,
don't
that is
I
what I meant was, let's say
hmm,
Nifty goes to 12,300, you're out of your call
yeah,
spread. Fine. After
yes,
that, if you plot a new 12,400, 12,600 spread, and it gives an entry
yes.
on its individual chart, then I'm saying,
Absolutely. I completely agree. But my thought process behind that is that since your call spread has already hit an SL, that means there is a strong bullish trend in Nifty.
correct.
Otherwise, your call spread will not even hit your SL to begin with, because
Yeah,
you have
I agree.
already given about 500 points of Nifty as a cushion. And once that hits, then that means that Nifty is actually making a one-way move more than 250 or 300 points.
Hmm.
That is why I do
Okay.
not touch the side which is not working. So I try to increase my position on the side which is working. So in this particular case, that would be the put call.
Yeah, so instead of following the, I mean, like slightly sort of a jara hatke trade, you don't mind pyramiding in your leg which is in favor.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and that has given me much better results, because there have been lot of instances where the initial entry may go against you, either in call side or in put side. But what happens
Hmm.
is you get out of that particular SL, and that particular SL has takes care. by the pyramiding which you do on the spread which is working already for you.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much I wanted to explain
So
on the strategy level
your
in a brief.
filter of VIX is a very good concept. So does that mean that in February, March this year, you were never in any trade at all because VIX had already started rising before the panic hit?
I was not in the trade in the last 2 weeks of March, last 3 weeks of March and 2 weeks of April.
And what about February? I mean February end when the decline started. That
February
time,
February end I was in the trade, but not from the March second week onwards.
okay, so the VIX is a good filter and keeps
Yes.
you away from the trade.
I think both the filters which I mentioned initially, the VIX as well as the event filter works very beautifully because
Yeah.
you can just not get into that particular trade for this particular week. So for example, the charts that you're seeing right now
Hmm.
for this week's Iron Condor, I have not entered that trade because of the US election event.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Abhijit,
No point in being
Yeah.
brave. Hmm.
Abhijit, I have
Yes,
a
Raghu.
couple of questions.
Yeah.
Regarding VIX, at what point of increase in VIX you stop doing this strategy?
About 23 to 24.
Okay, so around current levels you would exit
Yes.
normally.
Yes. Yeah.
And regarding the stop loss, like do you have any objective stop loss in this case?
So the
Like if,
objective stop loss is the if you see the payoff right now.
yeah.
So if any of the leg goes into that particular level, so if you see here the break evens. So
Mm-hmm.
for this particular strategy, the break even is 11,680 and 12,220, right?
Yes.
So if at all I have a Nifty sustain above that particular level for about 5 to 10 minutes, then I
Okay.
exit on that particular leg. I don't wait for that particular leg to completely go down and take the maximum loss on the trade, the maximum theoretical loss as the strategy shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. So it looks like okay, your stop loss would be somewhere around 25% of your maximum profit. Just looking at
Yes.
the payoff, I was
Exactly, exactly. And what happens is in that particular case, I'm already pyramiding my option spread, which is in profit. So
okay.
most of the time, what happens is that particular loss gets compensated by the pyramid. But in unfortunate situations where the market is very volatile, I do get stopped out at both the legs, which has happened probably 5 or 6 times during the last 1 year.
Okay.
And
And
because
when you
of the
do,
higher VIX, from what I see is that we have been discussing this strategy in private over the last 3 4 months. This maximum profit, which is shown as 3.59%, typically it is 4 to 5%, right?
Typically, it is 4 to 5%, but this
Yeah.
particular screenshot, which you see right now, I have taken after the market close on Friday. So
Okay.
I have taken it on Saturday. But if you enter into the trade on Friday after 12:30, this particular payoff is somewhere between 4 to 5%.
Yeah, so basically we are talking about 4 to 5% in 3 days, let's say in a week for 52
Yes,
weeks. Of course, not 52 weeks, out of which let's say 5 to 6 weeks are gone because of higher weeks or some event or something like that. So out of 40 to
yes,
45 weeks, you get stopped out for 5 to 7 weeks. So still you make profit
yes,
in at least 35 weeks in a year.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is a perfect statistic.
Okay.
okay, Abhijit, just one last question. So
Sure.
when your the other leg gets tested and then you
Hmm.
exit that particular leg, and you said you do
Right?
pyramiding, and when you do
Yeah.
pyramiding, use the
Hmm.
same strikes or you also move with the market and change
I move with the
move
market
strikes.
for the pyramiding because then you get to get more premium on the put side. If the call side gets hit,
Yes. So
yeah,
you move the for pyramiding, you move the strikes.
yeah. So for example, what in this particular case, what will happen is, for example, let's say Nifty on Monday goes to 12,200 and my call side gets stopped out. So my put side currently is 700 600 spread, right? So I would typically enter 900 and 800 spread in that case.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So yeah, the idea behind that is that to stay with the trend. So since there is a strong move in Nifty on the bullish side, you should be perfectly comfortable in terms of taking a spread on the put side in terms of shorting.
Yeah.
Just one thing, I mean, a lot of people sometimes get worried, and a lot of people keep discussing also. Let's say you have exited your call spread because of the that leg getting hit, and I mean,
Yeah,
this is a worry which typically people have. And at
yeah.
the end of that day, let's say it happens on Monday. So on Monday
Hmm.
close, you have only a put spread in hand.
Sorry, come again.
Let's say your stop loss gets hit on the call spread on a Monday. So at
Right.
Monday closing, you have only the put spread in the in your hand.
Yes,
And if
yes.
let's say something happens and market gaps down 200 points, I mean that is what typically people get worried about.
Well, I think that is part and parcel of trading this strategy. As I told you earlier, there have
Yeah.
been instances where it has happened to me that both of my legs got stopped out.
Okay.
But that instance is not even 15% in terms of the 100% trades. So that is a
Okay.
perfectly acceptable risk to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's basically ties up to the VIX itself. So if you have VIX,
Exactly.
Yes.
high VIX means you can hit on both sides more frequently.
Correct.
And
And that is where the VIX filter helps you very effectively here. Because
yes,
Yes.
typically, what you're trying to do with this strategy is you're trying to predict that the volatility will not be more, the Nifty would stay in range, and you will get to eat the premiums. But if at all the VIX goes above that level, then by definition, this is not a non-directional market. So you shouldn't be entering it in the first place. But if at all you enter and then the market takes a jump, then you just accept that particular week as not your week and get out of the trade.
yes.
This looks an interesting strategy because for per lot 40 to 45,000 margin, and you're talking about 2,000, 1,500 to 2,000 returns in 3 4 days. So if you
Yes.
can do multiple lots, let's say 5 or 10, that's quite interesting, like a steady
Yeah.
income per week.
Absolutely. So, even if you can allocate probably about for every 5 lakh margin, you should be able to do 10 lots of this particular strategy easily.
Yeah, and both sides are protected, so there is not.
Both
It's not
sides
like a
are
typical
protected.
straddle. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Both sides are protected.
Nice strategy, Abhijit. Nice. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing.
Thanks, Raghu. Yeah.
So over to you,
Uh,
Raghunath. Now I'll make you the presenter.
yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, AP. Thanks, Raghu.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay. So many people have been asking me, like, we talk a lot about implied volatility, but that many people don't know how actually the implied volatility is calculated. And of course, this will also apply to the VIX, but I'm just talking about for any particular contract of particular expiry of a particular underlying how implied volatility is calculated. So today I'll go slightly in depth how this is done. Of course, there is even much more depth to these calculations, but that might be going into real maths calculation. So I'll try to be not very uh, too much into maths. Um, so what is implied volatility? So this I've showed you in earlier option talks as well. For those who are new to this option talk, implied volatility is the expected volatility in the stock's future price uh, as implied by the stock's option prices. Implied volatility is expressed as annualized one standard deviation range of stock price. It's calculated using Black-Scholes formula. For example, if you take two stocks which similar price, and if you look at this put strikes of similar put strikes, and you see that one has higher option price and the other has lower option price, and that translate into higher implied volatility and lower implied volatility. So higher option prices will have higher extrinsic value and therefore high implied volatility, and lower option prices, which means it has lower in extrinsic value and therefore it implies lower implied volatility. So how the implied volatility is calculated? So I will do it in 3 steps here. The first step that so when I say implied volatility, I mean the implied volatility of the stock, not the option contract, but the stock or the index. So the first step is to calculate the theoretical option price of a call or a put. Okay. So here is the formula, a Black-Scholes formula for calculating the call price and then calculating the put price. So what are the inputs that are required to calculate this? One is the current stock price and the strike price of the option and time to maturity of the option in years. Okay. So if it's 30 days, then in years it will be 30 divided by 365, because 365 is the number of days in a year. That will give you the time to maturity of the option in years. And the fourth one is the risk-free rate of the interest. Now, in this case, what we use is the 3-month 91-day risk-free interest that we get from the RBI website. That will be the risk-free rate of interest. So this 91-day T-bill is called. Now sigma is the expected implied volatility of the underlying stock over the life of the option. So sigma is the implied volatility that you give as an input. Now this can be the historical volatility or the implied volatility. Now I will tell you how this is done. So basically, after giving all these inputs, then you get the theoretical call price. Okay, so you know this, the value of this, and value of the strike price, and then the value of the time to expiry, the risk-free rate of interest. Now sigma is something we have to imply it, right? Now this could be historical standard deviation, right? Or the annual what do you call this? Annual historical volatility. These are the things that we know. Okay, so that's how you calculate the theoretical call price and put price. Now, so let's imagine that we know how to calculate the theoretical call price or put price. Now, since we know that step, then how will we calculate the implied volatility of that particular strike price of that particular option? So how we do that is that we get the market price of the, so let's say we want to calculate the implied volatility of the call option. So what we do is that we get the call market price of that particular call option, and on the left hand side we have the calculation for the theoretical call price. So in order to calculate this sigma is the implied volatility of that particular option, right? So what we are doing here is that we will change the sigma by certain steps. So let's say I want to start from 0.01 of the sigma or the implied volatility, and I keep changing this by 0.01, and then I add another 0.01, that will become 0.02. So I keep on adding this. So I keep changing this till this theoretical price becomes equal to market price, right? Because these are all constant pretty much. Only this is the variable. So I keep changing this until I get the implied volatility where the theoretical call option price is equal to market call option price, and that will be the implied volatility of the call option. And you do the same for the put option as well. So that is how the implied volatility of a given option, whether it call option or put option, is calculated. So you keep changing the implied volatility. So let's say I got the implied volatility of all the strikes, call strikes as well as put strikes, of all the call strikes and put strikes of a given underlying, could be index or the stock. So now we calculate the composite implied volatility. Now this is what, when we say implied volatility of any particular stock or the index, even VIX is a composite implied volatility of the Nifty. So here what we do is that we take sigma, or the sum of all the IV option, or IV of all the option strikes, and multiply with their option volume, and then we add them together, and then divide it by all the option volumes, the sigma of all the option volumes. Sigma is nothing but sum of all option volumes of all those option strikes in this case. And then when you do that calculation, you get the composite implied volatility. So this is called volume weighted average. So composite IV of the underlying is calculated using volume weighted average of the IVs of all the option strikes. So that is how you calculate the composite implied volatility of the stock or index. Now, if you look at an option chain, this is how you do. You multiply the volume with the IV of that particular option strike for the calls as well as puts, and then you add them up, the volume weighted IV, and then you divide it by sum of the total volume, and then you will get the composite IV of that particular stock. So this is for example is the composite IV calculation of the Reliance. So that is how you calculate the composite implied volatility. And so this is the relationship between implied volatility and standard deviation. The standard deviation measures how occurrences deviate from the mean. So these are the percentage daily returns of your stock in general. And then if you plot them against the number of occurrences and their daily returns, this is what you get. So within 68%, the one standard deviation, the 68% of events occur. Okay, if you take 100 occurrences and then you put a theoretical line for 68.2% of occurrences, then that will become one standard deviation. And for 95% of occurrences, that will become two standard deviation. Now the relationship here is that standard deviation of a particular stock can be quantified by examining the implied volatility of stocks option. So for one standard deviation plus one standard deviation, you take stock price and you add to that, you add stock price into implied volatility. That will give you one standard deviation plus one standard deviation, and the same, and you subtract stock price into implied volatility to get minus one standard deviation. And 1 year expected standard deviation range based on the implied volatility will be minus one standard deviation to plus one standard deviation. So 30 standard deviation range in that case becomes stock price into implied volatility into 30 divided by 365, right? Because you're only looking for 30-day standard deviation range. So this is how you calculate standard deviation range based on the number of days to expiry of any given contract. So this is one example for the standard deviation, 1 year standard deviation calculation. So you get the implied volatility here, and then you get the stock price, and then you do this calculation to get 1 year standard deviation range. And when you saying that this is 1 year standard deviation range, it means that 68%, there's a 68% probability that this particular stock will stay within this range if this is the implied volatility for that year. So this keeps changing, of course, with the implied volatility. So this is the expected move calculation. Expected move is like, you want to know what is the expected move in the next 10 days or in the next 30 days. And then how you calculate that? You take stock price, multiply with the implied volatility, and then multiply with days to expiration divided by 365, right? Square root of that. And let's say I want to calculate what is the expected move in next 32 days. So this is the expected move in next 32 days using this formula for both these stocks. Okay. So if you see, this is how we plot in Opstra the 1 standard deviation and 2 standard deviation. And this keeps changing on the number of days to expiry of that particular expiry of that particular contract, option contract. Okay, that is all AP from me.
Yeah, I think no questions because this is all. I think a lot of people know about this and
Yeah.
quite well explained. So no questions from my side. So I
Okay.
think that's all for the week's options talk. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.